Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. Today we have another review for you, this time of a game called Astro Aqua Kitty. This is a follow-up to a game called Aqua Kitty that came out relatively early in the Switch's life and was a fun, arcade-based shooter. This sequel takes those shooting mechanics but blends them with some RPG elements. Now just before we get started with the review, I do just want to say that I've had flu for this last week or so and I've been absolutely caned by it, so I do apologise if that comes across in my voice. Hopefully it's not too bad for you to listen to. Anyway, is this game the cat that got the cream, or is it a bad kitty? Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. The story sees you putting together your team, picking both a pilot and an engineer, and then making your way to mine valuable gems in the rocks of a water-filled asteroid belt. You will be assisting the mining crew on each site, exploring the caverns, taking out a host of enemies, and all the while a new threat in the form of marauding space pirate rabbits threatens to rear its ugly head. So in terms of the gameplay, this sequel is quite a departure from its predecessor. Whereas that was a modern day interpretation of classic arcade game Defender, this is a more fleshed out shooter with RPG elements, as I mentioned earlier. The game is split into levels, with each level being a fairly large area full of nooks and crannies that will need to be explored in order to complete a number of objectives whilst attempting to evade or defeat countless enemies. Levels generally begin in a relatively linear fashion before you find a character to talk to and they will give you a task. It could be to escort some cargo, find lost crew members, or having to find particular materials in order to progress further into the level. At this point the level becomes non-linear and you will have points of interest marked on your map and will need to find the items or whatever the objective may be. You have a minimap in the top right corner and you can pull up a larger version of this by pressing ZL, and the map will fill out as you explore, making it easy to note where you haven't yet been. Once you have completed the necessary objective, you will then be able to make progress into an otherwise inaccessible area, generally due to the miners opening the doors for you. In this area you will no doubt receive another mission of a similar ilk until you arrive at the final area of the level where a boss will await, and we'll talk more about the bosses in a little while. In terms of the levels though, I enjoyed this non-linear structure and was quite pleasantly surprised by the mission based gameplay, although my main criticism of the game would be that the missions can get quite repetitive, such as in level 2 where you must collect 2 lots of resources to build a battery, but you must then do this 4 times. It wasn't the sort of repetition that kills some games completely, but it is a shame that things weren't mixed up a little more within each level. Other examples of this are having to find 2 or 3 pilots to launch a mining machine, or rounding up multiple enemies to put into a jail. There were also certain items needed for some quests that were hidden within materials attached to the walls, and these were quite difficult to spot against the background. This did lead to a few instances of flying around, shooting randomly at the walls until the material in question was destroyed, revealing the item that I needed. The amount of enemies on screen at once can get quite overwhelming, and you will have to shoot or dodge your way through this, and this for me was the best part of the game. I loved how intense things got, and whilst you don't necessarily have to kill everything, unless of course the mission calls for it, but defeating them also grants you experience points as well as gems and possible weapon pickups. Let's take this moment to talk about a few of these aspects, as they all tie together quite nicely. So defeating enemies awards you XP as mentioned, and enough of this will see you level up. However, this in and of itself does not improve your ship, but instead gives you ability points that you can then put into particular traits or abilities, and these will change depending on the 2 characters that you chose at the start. Some of these are passive, such as gaining more gems from defeated enemies, and some will need to be activated, such as increasing your rate of fire for a set amount of time. Leveling up also increases how much you can improve your health bar, your ship's armour, and your energy bar, which is needed to power up some weapons, but it isn't the actual levelling up that grows these. You will need to buy these upgrades with the aforementioned gems. To initiate all of this, you must first find one of the beacons scattered about the level and press ZL to dock. Pressing ZR on these beacons saves your game, and losing a life will bring you back to the last beacon you saved at. Whilst docked at a beacon, you can also buy new weapons from the shop, again using your gems, but you will pick up a number of weapons, both primary and secondary, as well as further abilities just through general play. You can assign your primary weapon to the A button and secondary to B, and you must be of a similar level to the weapon in order to equip it. Abilities are similar. You can equip these to your ship and they may grant you perks such as health regeneration, a longer reach for your weapon, or a higher critical hit ratio. I really did like the choice of weapons available, plus you can only hold so many, so at times you will need to get rid of one to take a new one on. I did genuinely have to change things up on a regular basis too, due to certain weapons faring better in particular situations. The plasma shotgun, for example, was way too slow for the intensity of swarms of regular enemies, but it cut through the second boss whilst anything else I tried barely made a scratch. A word on the bosses, and they are incredibly tough. They weren't necessarily the all-screen filling or inspiring mechanical contraptions found in some shooters, but they will certainly take some beating and were part of the challenge that I really enjoyed of this game, and this game will definitely challenge you. It's deceptively difficult, with the cutesy style hiding quite a sadistic threat. Control wise, your ship feels responsive and the button combinations are intuitive. You turn your ship around by pressing L and can access the weapon screen by pressing ZL, much like the map. I was pleasantly surprised by just how much the gameplay had going for it, but some repetition from certain missions and just from the gameplay loop in general does bring it down a touch, and it scores 15 out of 20. Controls aid the player, and whilst the menus do feel a little awkward to use at first, it doesn't take too long to get the hang of them, and they get 16 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, Astro Aqua Kitty is presented using a hand-drawn art style. Your ship has a sleek design to it, and all character portraits are well drawn. The levels feel claustrophobic, and this is exacerbated when the hordes of enemies attack, which really does help to amplify the intensity of such moments. Colour is used relatively well, although perhaps not as much as it could have been. Some levels do fare better than others, with strong purples mixed with the background shadows, whilst the seaweed and coral in the foreground provides the exact colour I was just mentioning, but other levels are quite dark in places and just don't use the same vibrancy to bring the sense of awe and wonder such a setting should evoke. The audio is a high point of the game, with the soundtrack being upbeat and action oriented, which suits the on-screen action very well. Weapons sound different to each other, and the random meowing of cats at certain points definitely adds to the charm. Overall, the visuals are clean and crisp, creating a world begging to be explored, but a bit more colour in some stages would have fleshed out the world a touch more, and they score 16 out of 20. Audio is definitely up there with the game's high points, and it scores 17 out of 20. Astro Aqua Kitty costs £11.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. You could play the game a couple of times and try different weapon loadouts or skill combinations, but it doesn't quite have the staying power of its predecessor owing to that particular game's arcade roots compared to the more finite structure of this one. Plus, this is only a single player affair, which is a bit of a shame. There are a number of difficulty options and a permadeath mode for those really looking to test their skills, and as well as this, it also has a number of in-game achievements. Whilst maybe a little overpriced, it's not horribly wide of the mark, and overall, value gets 15 out of 20. To conclude, Astro Aqua Kitty is a fun shooter with fairly large levels to explore, masses of enemies to take out, and some difficult boss encounters to test yourself against. I enjoyed the high level of challenge, which always felt just above comfort zone level, keeping you on your toes, and taking out all of the enemies definitely felt satisfying. The missions or objectives did feel a bit repetitive at times, and it misses the addictive gameplay loop of the first game as well as that multiplayer element. Whilst I think most people would be happy with this game had they paid full price, for me this is the sort of game that you buy on sale for a good price and then feel very happy with the rough diamond that you have uncovered. Astro Aqua Kitty gets a SwitchUp score of 79%. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Apologies for me struggling to get through it. It's pretty breathless by the end. As I said, I've been very unwell this week, but I am on the mend now. So hopefully the next video won't be quite so hard for you to listen to. A quick thank you to our Patreons as always for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, stay safe of course, and until next time, Happy gaming.